Yo son, 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 yo son.
My man got that.
Gotta move out of the mind. Yo son, yo son, yo son, yo son.
My man got that.
Yo son.
Okay, whatever. Okay, so today we're coming back from a little bit of a hiatus here with my cousin Kika. Would you like to
Hi.
introduce yourself in any special way or anything? We can
Not
get into
really.
it. I guess
I'm
you can.
Kika.
We're talking about Hard Day's Night. It's a Hard Day's Night, right? Not just Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
It's a Beatles album. Have not talked about
Yeah.
any Beatles songs or albums in any of my reviews so far. But yeah, Hard Day's Night, 1964 release. Third release, 1964, accompanies the movie.
I guess I'll introduce myself. I'm Kika, and basically I became a fan of the Beatles after I watched A Hard Day's Night, the movie, like
Really?
6 years ago, I guess, now. Yeah, it's been a long time, and
So
so
it's related
I've
to
been
a
a fan
Hard
ever
Day's Night. It's related to the album.
it was definitely fun to kind of revisit it, and I hadn't seen the movie in a while. I had a good time.
Is it a good movie? Is it their best movie? What would you say about that?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I enjoy the other ones, but I think it's the best one. I mean, it's in the Criterion Collection, the film.
I guess it's important to tell that you are like a big fan of the Beatles. So
Yeah.
she's like a huge fan. So that's like, I actually didn't know that Hard Day's Night was how you got introduced. So that's interesting.
Yeah, there were a couple songs I'd heard before, like I think Obla Di Obla Da, and then my dad had some of the songs from Let It Be on his phone, so I knew a couple of them, but that was the first one where I really got into them.
I guess my first question that I have, it's pretty lame that we always ask, is what were your, I guess, initial thoughts after returning to it, me introduced to it?
I really enjoyed listening to it again. Obviously, you know, I hear a lot of the songs here and there, but listening to it straight was really fun. I just think in general, it's a really fun album. A lot of the songs are very upbeat, and I always have a good time listening to it.
When I first listened to it, it's a lot of fun. It's like a lot of energy throughout the album. Like the album energy is really strong in that regard. Like I think before Rubber Soul, it was like mostly just about churning out hits using a lot of the same formulas, but they really, you know, ring true and like they stick on this album. I don't know how they are with all of their, you know, like main classic albums, or have they aged well? How do you think? Oh no. Yeah, I think we just one of us disconnected. My first question is, how do you think that the lyrics have held up? Like, do you think that they still hit as hard, like in the way the relationships are drawn out and things like on Tell Me Why or like Hard Day's Night? Or
Right.
do you think for over the track list, like all of them hit home, all of them, some of them have aged well, or what do you think in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, most of them are fine. I think, you know, I mean, I don't think, you know, they're the world's like greatest lyrics, most of them, though there are definitely good lines. I think there are a couple songs that I would say don't necessarily age great. John definitely wrote a couple songs, especially kind of early in his career, that were, you know, there's a lot of kind of jealousy and possessiveness. It doesn't really age super great, though he also talks about it kind of throughout his career on songs like Jealous Guy and Woman. So especially with his songs. And so there's a couple of those. I've heard them so many times that I don't really think about it anymore. But when you do think about it, you're like, oh, this isn't great. It doesn't really bother me. I don't know. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they bother. Like it's pretty taint. Like I don't think it's like super polarizing
not.
writing. I do agree in that regard. Even though you might think, you know, you see these lyrics and they're just very catchy.
Especially with John, he does go into quite a bit of kind of vulnerability, which I think I always enjoy.
Like songs like Can't Buy Me Love, Anytime at All, and Things We Said Today. And there are others. It's hard to say, like, if they were trying to make timeless songs, love songs that you could listen to at any time ever. Like, I think they were just kind of doing what they did and just, like, strong lyrics that, like, get straight to the point. But then you get to, like, what you're saying. I'm a Beatles, I guess, newbie. I still can't really tell when it's John or when it's Paul. And obviously, I didn't really look at the writing credits. But
early albums, like with all of their albums, they, like John and Paul had an agreement that all the songs that either of them wrote, it would be credited as Lennon McCartney.
Yo son, yo son, yo son, yo son. Yo son, yo son, yo.
And so this is actually the only album of theirs where every song is Lennon McCartney, because otherwise it either has like a cover or a George Harrison or a Ringo song. Most of the time it was collaboration. There's a couple where, you know, someone would obviously come in with, you know, pretty much the whole song, and the other one would kind of give their feedback and stuff like that. So it's mostly collaboration, but a bit of both.
Oh, I'll Cry Instead. I feel like that was, it was pretty, I don't know, it was just kind of boring. Like it just wasn't an engaging story. He wasn't like
Mhm.
manipulative enough for it to be like some sort of just he's playing some
Right.
evil character or something.
Things we said today, I enjoy. I think it's it's an interesting concept, this idea of kind of what we'll be kind of thinking back on in the future.
Yeah, that things we said today, that's like a really beautiful song. I think the way the melody, in the hook comes in and it's just like chill, it's relaxed. I think it rivals even some of the, chiller weighing in on every word of songs that are on like Revolver or like I feel like
Right.
that's a real hard hitter. That song thing.
Yeah, I really like that song. I think it kind of has a different, I don't really know the musical terms, but I feel like it kind of has a different like vibe from a lot of the songs in the album. And I like the way the different parts of the song kind of flow into each other. I was going to ask if there were any particular songs that really stuck out to you as kind of songs that you really liked, or I guess maybe disliked. I don't know, but yeah.
Oh, I think Happy to Dance with You.
That one's fun.
I think that was my most, and maybe the second song I should have known better. Dance with You, or I'm Happy to Dance with You. Hard rhythm, like it's such like a catchy, like cut and dry rhythm, mellow vocal delivery, and then the answer is like the two chords, like it really drives it forward. It's just such a driving song, and I love the way on all of these songs. I love the way that they transition from hook to counter hook, counter melody. Then you have the dun, dun, and then it sets back into like, I don't know, the transitions and the structure of the song is just impeccable on that song. It's just a ton of fun.
I agree with what you said about their transitions between the different parts of the songs, because that wasn't something I had really thought about much. But when I was listening to it this time, I definitely noticed that as well. That one was written specifically by John and Paul for George to sing. And so there's a couple of kind of songs in their early career where they were writing with his vocals in mind.
Wait, so that was George singing? I mean, I'm completely lost on who's singing.
It's fun. Yeah. I was the same way at first, but yes, that's George singing.
A great like he really held his own, and it was interesting. It definitely was different.
And the other one you said, I should have known better. I also think that one's super fun. There's a really great scene in the movie. I'll just kind of quickly describe it. They're on a train. They're kind of sitting in this area of the train with Paul's grandfather, who's not actually his grandfather, but supposed to be his grandfather. And they're like playing cards, and like a super nice scene. I think they use harmonica on that one, which they did a lot on some of their earlier songs, but I think they kind of dropped sort of after this one, or not too long after this.
The harmonica, I mean, the Beatles are really good on their later albums at implementing, the sitar or those type of sounds, or just like a lot of different sounds that, add to their formulas and how they do things. I really liked how the harmonica answered. It was, I don't know how popular the harmonica was in the 60s. I know Bob Dylan, obviously, and he was an influence, but like I don't know like a ton about the 60s music scene. I guess I kind of miss it. Like I wish it was in more music, because I think they utilize it so well. It's like such a catchy, like stings in the mix, like you can really hear it very well.
I mean, they also used it on songs like Love Me Do and stuff like that, so they had a couple of early songs that used it a lot. So if you're interested in hearing that, then maybe you'll want to look into that.
And then my least favorite, I guess, and then you can say your favorites and least favorite. I'll Cry Instead. I think that the writing just isn't catchy, which you might think, like if they're not, the lyrics don't really matter, they're just saying like catchy things, like general things about love. But then when they write a song like I'll Cry Instead, I just think it's kind of like a boring story, and it just shows how catchy and how important and how like skillful they are at writing a song like Can't Buy Me Love.
I would say my favorites would be Can't Buy Me Love, like you just mentioned. I always think that one just always makes me so happy. I think it's just so fun. The melody's great. I think Paul does great vocals as usual. I like And I Love Her a lot. I think that's a nice McCartney ballad. I think their harmonies on If I Fell are really nice. And then honestly, I like pretty much all of them. I would say if I had to pick two that are my least favorite, I would go with, I hate saying my least favorites, but I'm gonna go with it. I would say When I Get Home, because I don't dislike the song necessarily, but it never really kind of hit for me. I was like, okay, this is fine, but it just like, and then the other one I would say is kind of funny, because I like the song when I'm listening to it, but for some reason, despite the fact that I've heard it like 100 times, I like never quite remember how it goes. So I would say I'll Be Back, because I would assume that's not really, the best sign in terms of songwriting if I can't remember how it goes. I feel like John really does great vocals throughout this album. I think this is a bit of a kind of, I wouldn't say peak, because he has great vocals throughout his career, but I think he does a really good job on some of these early albums on, getting the emotionality of the songs.
You bring up a good point, because regardless of what I think about the vocals or the lyrics being sort of shallow and sort of like I don't know, kind of annoying and haven't aged that well. But I think that he has a lot of emotional vulnerability, and that almost kind of evens out for me. Another good song that you bring up is the "And I Love Her." That is like a very sweet song, obviously ethereal, like floaty vocals. I like that. Just the 4-note, like down, 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 down.
Yeah.
It's just like so catchy. I feel like that 4-note little riff, little lick, whatever you want to call it, just kind of encompasses the whole album because it's like it's so simple, catchy, and fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was actually going to bring that up as well. I think I remember I think this was on the radio somewhere. I remember Paul saying that he felt like George, because Paul wrote that song, but George, they were kind of struggling with it, and George came up with that riff. And I remember him saying that he felt like George really made the song with that. And I Love Her is kind of a funny idea, and I kind of like it.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of an awkward way for the hook to go, because he's like, if you saw her, you'd love her, and I love her. It's kind of awkward, but it's kind of funny. Yeah. Which would you like more? The songs that kind of have more busier mixes, like "Tell Me Why" with like a very heightened, like exciting chorus, like that's kind of the root of the song, like "Tell Me Why." "Can't Buy Me Love," that's a great example. Yeah. Or do you like calmer song like "And I Love Her"? Maybe songs with more laid-back delivery.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I would say, I think I would have to go with the kind of more energetic ones. I mean, I know definitely a lot of the kind of slower songs on this album are some of my favorites in general, and I think they're really great. Energetic songs, just kind of more fun. I kind of enjoy listening to them more. The songs that tie in with that movie are the really energetic ones, and obviously, that has great memories for me. If I remember correctly, I think John referred to "If I Fell" as his first "In My Life," and "I Love Her" as Paul's first "Yesterday," and so,
I think I agree that there's merit in both. I think you really can't go wrong with either side, and that's what makes the Beatles so great. Like, overall Beatles songs, I like the ballads more, like "And I Love Her" I thought was really catchy, really moody.
Yeah, and I just think they do great harmonies on that. I mean, whenever I try to sing along, it goes terribly because I have no idea which one to sing.
So what is that? How does the intro go? I don't think I remember like how the intro is different.
I don't want to torture the viewers with my singing, so I was going to ask you kind of what you thought of it in comparison to kind of some of the other albums you've listened to. And I think their later albums are kind of more sophisticated or whatever, but I think with albums like this, and especially this one, because I feel like for me at least, this is kind of height of their poppy Beatlemania early Beatles thing. And it's like the minute this album shows up, it's like every single hit is like the Beatles.
That's good to know that you think that this is the best Beatlemania, I guess, album. And I think that this album has a lot of parallels with Rubber Soul, as Rubber Soul is like probably the least sophisticated, least like high art. It's more mixing with folk. It's still very poppy, but it just has like maybe more critically acclaimed songs on it. The top songs from this album, they don't stand up to the heights of an album like Rubber Soul, like "In My Life" or, in my opinion, "Michelle," which is just, but I think like a song like "Happy to Dance With You" is great. That's just as good as any song off Rubber Soul. And I think that's something coming in that I was like, maybe this will be a lot, like significantly worse overall and average, like in the value of the track list. But I think happily was wrong about that. I think that a lot of these songs are just as good as any Beatles song.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I'm glad to hear you say that because, obviously I'm a big fan, so they went through a lot of different styles. No matter what style you're doing, I think the talent kind of comes through anyway. It's interesting that you note that about Michelle, that it could be on here, because I think that Paul actually wrote that one kind of earlier, but he didn't really have any lyrics to it, so it's kind of interesting that you say that.
Because Rubber Soul was a year after. It was only a year after, right?
I mean, they did 13 albums in 8 years. It was like 2 albums a year most years, so which is crazy, and especially with the evolution between them.
The concluding thoughts before, because we've been talking about a lot of different albums, like to just kind of close the Hard Day's Night. So what were your concluding thoughts, and what would you rate it out of 10?
I just think in general it's a great album. I think pretty much every song on it I love. There's a lot of great songs with a lot of great melodies and a lot of great vocals. And then in terms of rating out of 10, all right, this is hard. I mean, basically my personal opinion on Beatles is that like everything they release is like 8.5 out of 10 or up, and then like everything else is like, I would say like 9 out of 10, because I think they have worse albums and they also have better albums.
That this album has a lot of catchy songs, although like there's a couple songs that I thought didn't work as well, but I already explained. I think it has a lot of emotional vulnerability. Songs like "I'll Cry Instead," I think it's still pretty strong song, even if it's one of the worst on the album in my opinion. As about as perfect pop rock, catchy, great transitions, great melodies, a lot of variety between the track lists with like, you know, all the way from Can't Buy Me Love to like a song like Things We Said Today. Just a lot of variety in this quick 30-minute. I mean, it's like bite size.
Yeah, it's so short.
It's so easy to enjoy. But I think I give this album like an 8.8. But it's still
I feel that. I'm terrible at rating things. Like I always rate movies, and it's just like
no, you're not. No one can be bad at it. It's mostly we're scoring how much you enjoy it. So like if you just enjoy it all the way, it's like 8 or 9 is pretty much makes sense. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I agree with everything you said. So.
You gotta move, God, gotta move, God, gotta move, God, gotta move, God. Yo, son, yo, son, yo, son, yo, son. Yo son, 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 yo son. You gotta move, God, 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 gotta move, God.